Japan, the land of the rising sun, was once an economic powerhouse. Its industries dominated the globe from cars to electronics. Fast forward to today, and the picture is starkly different. Japan's economy is grappling with stagnation, a far cry from its glory days. The once mighty giant seems to have lost its footing. Japan's population is shrinking and its once booming industries are struggling to keep pace with global competition. The economic miracle that Japan once represented has faded. Can Japan reinvent itself and reclaim its position on the world stage? The story begins in the ashes of World War II. A devastated Japan occupied by Allied forces faced an uncertain future. But from the ruins emerged a spirit of resilience, a determination to rebuild. Japan embraced innovation, focusing on quality and efficiency. By the 1980s, Japan was an economic juggernaut, its companies dominating industries worldwide. But this rapid ascent contained the seeds of its own downfall. Today, Japan stands at a crossroads. Its challenges are undeniable, but so is its potential. The country possesses a highly skilled workforce, a strong tradition of innovation, and a reputation for quality. But to regain its economic footing, Japan must confront its past mistakes and embrace change. Join us as we unravel the complex story of Japan's economic rise and fall, and explore what the future holds for this once mighty economic giant. August 6, 1945. The atomic bombing of Hiroshima, followed 3 days later by the bombing of Nagasaki, brought World War II to a devastating end. Japan, once a formidable military power, lay in ruins. Under the Allied occupation led by the United States, Japan underwent a process of demilitarization and democratization. The country adopted a new constitution, renounced war, and embarked on a path of peaceful development. The United States, recognizing the strategic importance of Japan, began pouring resources into the country's reconstruction. This aid, combined with the hard work and ingenuity of the Japanese people, laid the foundation for an economic miracle. As Japan focused on rebuilding its infrastructure and industries, an unexpected event on the Korean peninsula would prove to be a turning point in its economic fortunes. In 1950, war erupted between North and South Korea, with the United States leading a United Nations coalition in support of the South. Japan, geographically close to the conflict, found itself in a strategically advantageous position. The United States, needing a reliable source of supplies and materials for its war effort, turned to Japan. Orders for ammunition, vehicles, clothing, and other essential goods poured in, injecting much-needed capital into the Japanese economy. The Korean War acted as an unintended catalyst for Japan's economic recovery. The Korean War boom marked the beginning of Japan's ascent to economic superpower status. Japanese products, known for their quality and affordability, began to flood international markets, challenging established industries in the West. The Japanese government implemented policies aimed at promoting industrial growth and technological innovation. Japanese companies embraced new technologies and management techniques, such as those introduced by American statistician W. Edwards Deming. However, amidst this period of unprecedented economic growth, seeds of doubt began to sprout. Japan's economic model, heavily reliant on exports and government intervention, was becoming increasingly unsustainable. By the dawn of the 1960s, Japan had regained its footing after the devastation of World War II. Prime Minister Hayato Ikeda unveiled his ambitious income doubling plan in 1960. Ikeda aimed to double Japan's gross domestic product within a decade. The plan focused on rapid industrial growth, expansion of exports, and improvements in infrastructure and education. The income doubling plan was more than just an economic policy, it was a national aspiration. The government played an active role in guiding the economy, fostering collaboration between businesses, banks, and research institutions. Central to Japan's economic miracle was the rise of the Keiretsu system. These large, interconnected business groups, often with a bank at their core, played a pivotal role in Japan's post-war economic boom. Keiretsu, such as Mitsubishi, Sumitomo, and Mitsui, were characterized by cross-shareholding among member companies, creating a web of interdependence and mutual support. The Keiretsu system offered several advantages, including stable financing and preferential trading relationships. However, the Keiretsu system also had its drawbacks, such as stifling competition and fostering complacency. The system's opacity and resistance to outsiders raised concerns about corporate governance and accountability. While the Keiretsu system provided the structural foundation for Japan's economic miracle, another factor played a crucial role in its success: a relentless focus on quality. This emphasis on quality was the result of the influence of W. Edwards Deming, an American statistician who is considered the father of modern quality control. Deming's teachings found fertile ground in post-war Japan. Japanese businesses embraced Deming's philosophy of continuous improvement and statistical process control. Companies like Toyota, Sony, and Panasonic adopted his methods, leading to a dramatic improvement in the quality and reliability of their products. Japanese goods became synonymous with quality, durability, and innovation. By the 1980s, Japan had reached the zenith of its economic miracle. The income doubling plan was a resounding success, propelling Japan to become the world's second-largest economy. Japanese companies dominated industries from automobiles to electronics. A sense of euphoria and invincibility permeated Japanese society, fueled by an unprecedented surge in asset prices. This period, known as the bubble economy, was characterized by rampant speculation and excessive risk-taking. Real estate prices skyrocketed, and the stock market soared to dizzying heights. The Japanese government, initially reluctant to intervene, eventually implemented policies to cool down the overheated economy. The year 1985 marked a turning point in Japan's economic trajectory. Faced with mounting pressure from the United States, the Japanese government agreed to the Plaza Accord. This agreement aimed to devalue the US dollar against the Japanese yen and other major currencies. The rapid appreciation of the yen made Japanese exports more expensive, hurting the country's export-oriented industries. The Bank of Japan, in an attempt to mitigate the negative effects of the strong yen, further lowered interest rates, inadvertently fueling the asset bubble. The combination of a strong yen and low interest rates created a perfect storm for asset price inflation. By the late 1980s, the Japanese economic bubble had reached unsustainable proportions. The stock market, as measured by the Nikkei 225 index, peaked at a record high of 38,915 on December 29, 1989. The bubble finally burst in the early 1990s, triggered by rising interest rates and a decline in consumer confidence. As asset prices plummeted, banks were left with mountains of bad loans, businesses went bankrupt, and unemployment soared. Japan had entered what would become known as its lost decade. The lost decade shattered the myth of Japan's invincibility, revealing deep-seated structural problems in its economy and society. The bursting of the bubble economy in the early 1990s plunged Japan into a prolonged period of economic stagnation known as the lost decades. The collapse of asset prices left banks saddled with bad loans, crippling their ability to lend and stifling investment. Businesses, burdened by debt and facing weak demand, cut back on investment and hiring, further depressing economic activity. Despite various attempts by successive governments to stimulate the economy, Japan struggled to regain its footing. The country's once envied economic model seemed to have lost its effectiveness. The lost decades became a stark reminder of the perils of complacency and the need for adaptability in a rapidly changing global economy. As Japan grappled with the consequences of the bubble's burst, it became increasingly clear that the lost decades were a symptom of deeper structural problems within the economy. One of the most pressing challenges was Japan's rapidly aging population and declining birth rate. With fewer young people entering the workforce, Japan faced a shrinking consumer base and a growing burden on its social security system. The country's traditionally rigid labor market hindered labor mobility and made it difficult for younger workers to find good jobs. Furthermore, Japan's system of close cooperation between government, banks, and corporations had become a source of stagnation. The Keiretsu system, characterized by cross-shareholding and interlocking directorates, stifled competition and discouraged risk-taking. Asia's shifting economic landscape. Japan struggled to revive its economy as new Asian competitors emerged. China and South Korea rapidly industrialized, leveraging lower labor costs and advanced manufacturing. China became a formidable competitor with its vast low-cost labor pool. Japanese companies faced intense competition, eroding market share. South Korea emerged as a major player in automobiles and electronics. Samsung and Hyundai challenged Japanese giants like Sony and Toyota. A shrinking and aging population. As Japan grappled with economic stagnation, a demographic time bomb was unfolding. The population was rapidly aging, and its birth rate had plummeted. This shift, rooted in post-war changes, cast a long shadow over Japan's future. The reasons behind Japan's demographic decline were complex. The high cost of living made raising children a financial burden. Traditional gender roles discouraged many women from having more than one child. Section 2. A closed door. Policy, immigration, and the labor shortage. Faced with a shrinking and aging workforce, Japan had a seemingly obvious solution: immigration. However, the country's deep-rooted cultural homogeneity and a strong sense of national identity made it resistant to embracing large-scale immigration as a solution to its demographic and economic woes. Japan's immigration policies remained highly restrictive, focusing primarily on attracting highly skilled professionals and students while making it difficult for low-skilled workers to enter and settle in the country. This approach, while addressing specific labor shortages in certain sectors, did little to alleviate the overall demographic pressure and the shrinking workforce in key industries. The reluctance to embrace immigration stemmed from various factors. Some argued that a large influx of foreigners would erode Japan's unique cultural identity and social cohesion. Others feared that immigration would lead to increased crime and social unrest. These anxieties, often fueled by nationalist sentiments and a perception of Japan as a culturally homogeneous nation, created a significant barrier to enacting more open immigration policies. The burden of success, social welfare, and the public debt crisis. The demographic time bomb had far-reaching consequences, not only for Japan's economy, but also for its social welfare system and public finances. As the population aged and the workforce shrank, the burden on the younger generation to support the growing elderly population through taxes and social security contributions became increasingly unsustainable. Japan's once-envied social welfare system, designed during a period of rapid economic growth and a young population, was ill-equipped to cope with the realities of a shrinking and aging society. Healthcare costs soared as the elderly population grew, and pension funds faced a funding crisis as contributions dwindled and payouts increased. The government, faced with declining tax revenues and soaring social welfare costs, resorted to massive borrowing, leading to a public debt crisis that dwarfed that of any other developed nation. By the early 2010s, Japan's gross government debt exceeded 200% of its GDP, a staggering figure that raised concerns about the country's long-term fiscal sustainability. A future uncertain: can Japan rise again? Japan's economic rise and fall is awe-inspiring and cautionary. It's a testament to resilience and innovation, yet a reminder of the dangers of complacency. Can Japan reinvent itself and reclaim its position on the world stage? Challenges include a shrinking population, public debt, a rigid labor market, and fierce competition from emerging economies. The lost decades eroded confidence in Japan's economic prowess. However, Japan has repeatedly defied expectations. It still possesses a skilled workforce, innovation, quality, and stability. The question is whether these strengths can overcome the challenges ahead. Embracing change: the path to renewal. Japan needs a fundamental shift in mindset, embracing change and challenging long-held assumptions. The old ways of rigid hierarchies and resistance to immigration won't suffice. Addressing the demographic crisis is crucial. Japan must embrace immigration and attract foreign talent. Fostering innovation and entrepreneurship is key. The government should invest in R&D and reduce bureaucratic hurdles. Addressing public debt with fiscal discipline and structural reforms is essential. Lessons from the land of the rising sun. Japan's economic journey offers valuable lessons for other nations. It highlights adaptability, long-term thinking, and the perils of complacency. Post-war success was built on work ethic, quality, and government guidance. But Japan's model became unsustainable as the global economy evolved. The lost decades show the dangers of clinging to past glories. Constant adaptation and innovation are crucial. Even the most successful nations must evolve to thrive in the 21st century.